Please welcome Darin Anderson.
Hey, Tom. Everybody hear me all right? Is this good? Great. Thank you, Michael. Glad to be here, and I really am grateful for the sponsorship, Ken, and for everything that you guys are doing to generate entrepreneurship here in the Orange County environment, particularly UC Irvine. I want this to be very interactive. We have fewer people than I was expected, so I hope during this that you guys will not hesitate to ask questions. I feel very blessed to be here, and this is kind of a really important process for me to go through, is I had to kind of reflect on my life and say, what are the things that were really critical? What helped me along? What were the challenges that I experienced? What were the confidence-inspiring events? Where did I fail? Where did I triumph? And so I really want to try to share those things very candidly and very openly. So I hope you don't hesitate to ask questions, and I will hopefully be as authentic and real and genuine as possible about my journey. I think it's important to go back. So for today, I will share a little bit of my personal story from when I was young with my parents through kind of college and my professional career, and then I'll start kind of my entrepreneurial journey. But I think it all weaves together, and it'll give you a little perspective of my psychology, my experiences, so that hopefully you can be inspired. When I was going through school, it was really important for me. My parents, who were wonderfully generous and just amazing to me, gave me all the love and support in the world to give me the confidence in who I am. But they were anything but entrepreneurs. They probably were very fearful of being entrepreneurs or having their own business. My dad was an engineer. He worked at the same company for 35 years. His dad worked at the same company, Caterpillar, for 55 years. So it gives you a little sense that, you know, starting out and venturing something new was not on their plate. They were company men, right? And that's what they did. My mom was a school teacher, and she had bad health, and so she stayed home and she never worked. So I had a different perspective growing up, and I was fortunate while I was going through school and through my career to have a lot of mentors. And I remember the first time really learning about business was in graduate school when I was going through the MBA program. And I'll go back here shortly. But I had a lot of people who came out to the school, like I'm kind of sharing today, that shared their intimate stories and their successes and their challenges about running organizations. And when they were starting up, what did they overcome? And that was really inspiring to me, because I thought success was easy, and I said, there's no way I can reach that. There's no way I could attain that level of success. That's really hard. Those are really smart people. They are clearly the best of the best. And without really learning what their experiences were, their journeys, their failures, I wouldn't have had a good perspective to take those initial chances in life. And so I was very thankful for them sharing that and opening and taking the time to be able to offer their mentorship and stories to all of us. We're declining kind of in the United States in terms of entrepreneurship. There are fewer entrepreneurs that are being started over the last decades. You can see the number of business startups is declining. We need to get better at that. And so hopefully this will inspire some people to get out there and be entrepreneurs. It's not easy. So what is an entrepreneur? Let's start with there. What is being an entrepreneur? Everybody have an idea? Yeah. Absolutely, a risk taker. Okay. What else? Any other ideas? Let me ask you first. How many of you are students? How many students? Okay. How many alumni? How many are entrepreneurs? Okay, great. Perfect. Good balance. I think it was important for me to just understand. So entrepreneurs, are they risk takers? Would you say, yeah? I would say most people would perceive them as being risk takers. If you talk to my wife, I actually see it as, if I didn't go out and start my own companies, I would think there's more career risk and more life risk for me. And I share my perspective is that there was no option for me. I had to go do it on my own. Once I got the requisite skills and confidence, I couldn't work for somebody else. I couldn't do it for several reasons. That I had a way that I wanted to do it. I saw that I could do it better than the way my CEOs or my mentors are doing it at the time, and it was compelling to me. I had to go do it on my own. And that's what an entrepreneur sees. They see an opportunity where nobody's giving them the chance. They may not believe them, or they may not believe in their story, and they're saying, I got to go do it for myself. And that's what an entrepreneur does. So they are risk takers in the perception of most people because it's hard. There's a lot of sacrifice. But there's also the reward as well. So I first start is that entrepreneurs have all the risk and all the reward. That's what an entrepreneur is. All the risk and all the reward. The responsibility lies where? On your shoulders, every step of the way, right? That's what an entrepreneur does. It can be in any type of business, but that is truly an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs can be in service companies, they can manufacture products, they can develop software. Anything spans the range of what an entrepreneur can do, right? So that's entrepreneurism. They can innovate. Let's talk about a little bit of classic entrepreneurs. Amazon, for example. What did Amazon do well? Did they innovate something? Kind of. All they were doing is selling what initially? Do you guys remember? They sold books. They sold books. Hey, I'm going to go start a new business online selling books. Somebody else would probably go, whoa, why would you do that? I mean, books have been sold in Barnes & Noble and everywhere else for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, right? But they innovated. They said, what can I do to deliver better? How can I make it more efficient? How can I deliver a better service to my customers, right? And so they took advantage of that. Wasn't supplying something different. It was all in the delivery. The innovation was in the delivery, right? Look at Uber today. Uber, wildly successful, or Lyft, whichever, if you're not an Uber fan, Lyft fan, whatever. But what are they doing? What are they? They are a taxi service. Hey guys, I'm going to go start a company. I'm going to start a taxi service. You go, well, that's the most highly regulated industry. There's hundreds of taxis. Why would you want to do that? Well, no. I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to do it less expensively. I'm going to do it innovatively. I'm going to actually create jobs. And that was their mindset. So did they really do anything? Did they deliver something different? Yes. The service was already there. All they did was innovate the approach. They innovated the delivery. Does that make sense? Southwest Airlines, another great one. What do they do? Southwest Airlines, everybody flies them, right? They're in the airlines business. Been in airlines for 60, 70 years, commercial airlines. What makes them so special? Their service. They started in Dallas, right? They started in Love Field, in a podunk Love Field out there outside of Dallas. They said nobody was going to want to go out to Love Field. Everybody's going to Fort Worth International. They said, we'll do it. And what did they innovate? Low-cost airlines, no frills, on time. And people wanted that. Who wanted to compete against the big boys, right? The Continentals, the American Airlines. These little startups did. They said, we can do it. We can deliver it less expensively. There's a market for it, and we're going to serve that market. And then they just kept growing. They stuck to what they knew best. And so one of the things we'll talk about is market segmentation and market differentiation later on as an entrepreneur. So let me step back a little bit and go through, share a little bit of story about my personal journey growing up. And so please tolerate a little bit. I think it's kind of important stories to share. So my mom and dad, I was an only child. I was adopted. My parents were fantastic. My mom wasn't able to have children. I lived in the same house until I was 18 years old. And I didn't realize, I kind of lived in a bubble. I felt how many of you actually have lived in the same home from the day you were born to the day you went to college? Yeah, very few. I mean, I'm talking less than 20%. I didn't know how unusual that was, but that's what I did. So I was very fortunate, very stable environment. My parents had very little money. My dad, I think, at the time made $30,000 kind of when I was going through school, which was still a small amount then. And I think by the time he retired in 1985, he was making $45,000, which is a good amount of money. But we lived by very middle class, I would say lower middle class. Tremendous love, great support. But my parents were always, they instilled in me a work ethic. My mom was the first one in my family to graduate from college, and she said she barely graduated college. My dad did not graduate college. He was two-year community college and was a fairly lower level engineer, but just a solid, hardworking guy who was always there as a parent and just very reliable. But they always instilled the values of work ethic in me, in everything I did. I loved sports. My dad was there for everything in sports. And they said, Darin, if you want a new bike, every year it kind of got more expensive. I had to contribute more. So when I was 12 years old, it was 40% of whatever I wanted to purchase. They made me pay for it. And so I said, well, how am I going to get that money? So I had to do chores around the house, right? But then what I also did is I started on a paper route. I don't know, how many of you guys have ever done paper routes? Back when? That's a long time ago. Sorry, I'm dating myself. So they don't have paper routes anymore, but I had a paper route when I was young, and I wish they still had it today because it was really valuable for me. Paper routes, what did it teach me? I was 12, 13 years old. I started my first paper route, and you basically were running a business. I had no idea, but you were running a business. So you had to get up every day, Saturday and Sunday, to deliver papers. The papers were dropped off at your house. You had to fold them. You put them in your bag. You rode your bike, and you delivered them every day to a person's house or to their door. And I'll share, I learned a lot. I did this for 3 years, and you learn about people. You learn about relationships. You learn about how to sell. I had to go out and sell new subscriptions. I had to go door to door. Hey, would you like a paper from the Daily Breeze? Oh, yeah, great. Let me sign you up. And I was selling, right? Then I had to go deliver and sell every time. And if I had to go on a vacation or go anywhere, what did I have to do? The paper still needed to be delivered, or I'd get 300 phone calls going, where's my paper, right? You learn customer complaints very quickly when the paper's not on the door. And I remember certain people who are so finicky where the paper had to be right here on the doorstep, not over here, but right here. I'm going, okay, all right. But what it taught you is that people are so different and so unique, and you've got to be able to adapt if you want to sell, right? And so I learned how to deliver. I learned how to make sure customer service was there, and I had to learn how to collect. We had to go collect the money as well. It was crazy. I was thinking what we did at 12, 13 years old. And so I wanted to get more money. I innovated, had to make sure it was there. I was fast, efficient, and I took on another route. And so just kind of building. But the lessons were so clear back then about people. How do you sell? How do you relate? How do you provide customer service? And those were just invaluable lessons to me as a youngster that I didn't even realize how important they were. And what my dad was teaching as well is that, hey, you got to be responsible for yourself, and you're going to learn the value of money as you grow as well. And I hope that we're instilling those values in our children as well, because it was really important for me. Another valuable lesson I learned when I was young, I had a lawn mowing business. That was back before I had one of those push mowers. It wasn't an electric motor or a gas mower. It was one of those blades where you had to push it, right? And I went out and I was selling mows, at the front yard for $5 and backyard for $5, and great. So I was going around the neighbors selling and did well. And I went to this one lawn where the front was cut fairly well, and I asked this lady, I said, would you like your lawns cut? And she's like, yeah, how about you do my back lawn? And I go, okay, great. So I went home and got my lawnmower, and I opened up the backyard, and I almost just died. The lawn hadn't been cut in months, and it was probably this thick. And I had one of those push mowers. You guys probably don't even realize it was just a blade where you actually had to push it. And so I looked at it, and I almost just fainted. And I literally worked for 2 hours in a square about this area trying to cut down the lawn, and it was, 1,000 square feet. My hands were bloody. This is 2 hours later. My hands were bloody. I'm sitting there trying to push this along, and I went to my dad, and I said, Dad, I can't do this. I can't do this. And he said, did you agree to do it? And I said, yeah, I did. And he said, well, then you better go finish your job. And I did. I finished the job, and it took me a long time. In fact, it took me several days. And I was obviously not happy about it at all. But what did my dad teach me at that time? What did he teach me? He said, you don't quit. You don't quit. Your word, you said you're going to do it, you're going to deliver it. But the biggest lesson I learned in all of those were true, but as I learned that's now really important in my life is I learned how to scope out a job first. I know that I got to go see it before, and I know it completely before I take something on, right? Because you could lose a lot of time or money without scoping out the work. But those were valuable lessons that I didn't have to learn while I was on the job when it was later. I learned it when I was younger because I was taught through experience. And so a lot of times, we protect one another. I learned those earlier on, and it really helped me in my business career, I think, get a little more ahead and advanced. So my parents weren't involved in my schooling. I did well. I had really good grades, I think 4.2 GPA, and did well on the SAT. I only applied to UCLA and to San Diego State. We didn't have money. And at the time, you could only apply to one UC school. And they said, hey, you're not good enough for the UCLA engineering program. I said, damn it. I won't go into the reasons why. They said, go out to UC Riverside, and then after 2 years, if you got a 2.0, you can come back to UCLA. And I loved it out at UC Riverside. Did well. I moved from engineering to accountancy and information systems. And I graduated from UC Riverside. I was most outstanding graduating male. And I learned through my period there at UCR, in the fraternity, I learned leadership. So I was involved in a fraternity. I was very closed-minded. I hadn't traveled much. My family had maybe traveled more than 200 miles in my lifetime. Only one time to Mexico City when I was 14, and that was an eye-opener for me. So cultural experience was really important, that I learned a lot. And then going through UCR, though, I was involved in so many leadership roles that helped build my skills, how I communicate with people, how I listen and learn from one another. I lived my life kind of going like this. I thought everybody thought the same way I did, and I realized that they really don't. So it was important for me to build perspective from other people. And after I graduated, and I should share, I got married. I was with the same woman all through my college years. We started school at 17 and 16 years old. Went through all college dating the same person. We got married when we were 21 and 20, which is crazy. And I wouldn't suggest that to anybody. But that was just who I was at the time. I was very kind of focused and loyal. And we ended up staying together for 10 years. And we ended up getting a divorce. And I've been now married to my beautiful wife, Lori. Lori, wave your hand. Lori's, we've been married now 16 years, thank you. 16 years, and she's a professional engineer, super sharp. And I'll share kind of how my journey has affected that relationship, is that we got married young, and I didn't invest in the relationship as I was growing. I was so invested in growing my business that we grew apart. And we didn't share the same values as well. I was just a prodigious saver because I didn't have any money and I wanted to save money. And my wife didn't want to do that. She had different values. She had grown up a little more privileged, so our values were a little bit misaligned. And yeah, we drifted away. And that was a very painful period in my life, particularly as an entrepreneur. And I wrote a lot of big checks there at the end where I go, what was I working so hard for? What was I doing all that? I was traveling everywhere. And so it gave me a little perspective, which I'm still learning, honestly. My wife is incredibly patient and tolerant, but I've gotten much better at trying to balance my time and perspective. So anyway, so I started my career at Price Waterhouse. I was fortunate to get offers from all the firms. And I remember my first day of training at Price Waterhouse. Here I was coming from UC Riverside, and everybody else was coming from top 10 schools. And we're in a training program. And I remember sitting down going, God, I thought I did pretty well at UCR. I was fairly distinguished. And then I got around everybody else, and I'm going, man, these guys are really smart. They come from top schools. They're recruited by best firms. And I got to be honest, is that I felt that I was not worthy enough to be there. Obviously, the firm thought that I was good enough. I didn't think I was good enough. And I was looking around thinking, boy, am I going to make it or not? I don't know how I'm going to be successful. These guys were sharp, had the top grades, the best schools, and I didn't have the confidence in myself. So I said, well, may not be the most intelligent, may not come from the best school, but I'm going to work my ass off, and I'm going to do well. And so I tried to apply myself, and over a couple years, I did well. I distinguished myself, and I realized that, you know what, I've got the same skills. I've got the same abilities. And that confidence, as we were talking about earlier, I didn't have as much confidence in myself as other people had in me, and that happened several times in my life. So after Price Waterhouse, I worked in mergers and acquisitions. Yeah?
What were you doing at Price Waterhouse?
I was in audit. Yeah, yep. And then so I worked at mergers and acquisitions here in Irvine for a company that was growing the emergency medical services market. I was on the merger and acquisition team. We were pre-IPO company. We went IPO, and then we grew from a $20 million a year business to about a $200 million a year business in a 2-year period of time. And so I was one of 3 that was traveling around the world. I literally was in 2 or 3 cities every week for my life for a year and a half, 2 years plus, and learned a lot. I had a great mentor, who really took me under his wing. And same at Price Waterhouse. I had incredible mentors, the partners there. I got to learn so much, to learn best practices of what do companies do, how Price Waterhouse works with very successful organizations. So I was able to learn from the CEOs of these organizations, the salespeople, the chief operating officers. What are their best practices? What makes them successful? How do the people respond? What do the leaders do? How do they treat one another? How do they strategize? How do they plan? And so for me, it was an additional MBA program because I got to learn while I was still working, but I got to see what these best organizations were all about. As opposed to being in kind of one organization where you only get to see one person, one leader, boy, I got to see it all. So it was just a wonderful experience for me to help shape what I consider to be the best practices. And I've taken so much from so many different people over the years to shape my leadership environment, my approach, my culture in organizations. And I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I wasn't ready to be an entrepreneur. One, I didn't have confidence in myself, and then I didn't know what I wanted to do as an entrepreneur. So you have to have a good idea before you can actually apply it, and I didn't have an idea. I was still learning skills. Some people are fortunate they have better ideas earlier on in their career, and they have the confidence to be able to do it. So after mergers and acquisitions, I had a great mentor who taught me really the art of growing a company, doing acquisitions, doing mergers, and it was incredibly valuable in my life. And it was a lot of times in business school, you learn about the financial analysis, and today, the financial analysis is really a small part. It's really all about the people. It's about the cultures. It's about how do you align your interests with one another so that there's a guarantee of success in the future. And so many people miss that entirely. So it goes from relating to people, what are your goals, what are your interests, and understanding those very well. How do you structure an arrangement so that you know that you're both going to be successful? Do you share the same vision or not? And a lot of people think that they want to just do a deal in some way because it's attractive financially. But I can tell you the best things that you look at on paper oftentimes never work out that way on paper because they just aren't, they're not well thought through. And the persons who are supposed to be driving those results, they're not motivated or they're not aligned with yours. And so it's really important to make sure you have team members and leaders who are aligned with your goals and interests or that you mutually define them. I then was recruited at the same time. I was teaching back at UC Riverside during that period. And while I was working during the day and flying around, I would fly and be teaching kind of intermediate accounting classes. It was stupid. It was just stupid, but I loved it. I loved being in the classroom and teaching. So one of my students actually, his father had run an engineering firm and said, gosh, they need a CFO. And I'm 25 years old or so at the time. Oh, okay. This sounds great. I don't know what a CFO really does. I think I know what it does, but I've learned. And so I interviewed and got the job. I was like, fantastic. We grew that business from, at the time, it was about $4 million to almost a $24-25 million a year business in a 5-year period of time, and I learned a lot. I would say he was probably not the best mentor, but I learned a lot through the process of what are good practices, and I applied a lot of what I had seen in previous years into this organization to help it grow. Systems, processes, leadership, shared vision together. I was then recruited to be the CFO at 30 years old by Kleinfelder. It was a 1,300 person engineering firm at the time. That's where I met my wife, Lori. She was an engineer in the Las Vegas office. It was just a wonderful environment. It was an employee-owned organization, great CEO who was I'm going to describe, had a great vision, really brought people into the organization, let them be a part of the organization's success, the strategy, and it was a great team alignment and a lot of discipline and accountability through the organization. So learned a lot from him of how to grow and develop an organization. From there, I I was starting to feel at this point in time I was creating a lot of value in organizations, and my confidence was starting to get higher. And I should go back is that each point in time when I became the CFO of that organization, this is a 1,200 person organization with 40 offices. I was like, that's way out of my league. I have no idea about the systems. But again, it went back that they had more confidence in my ability to do it than I did. And I was grateful for them believing in me, and I did a great job for them. And we grew that organization and helped them now. They're a national organization and one of the largest engineering firms in the world. I left one of my longtime partners today, who is a fraternity brother of mine. And I guess another theme that I want to share on this, what's a theme that all of these, did I ever apply for a job? Not one time, right? Why do you think that was? Relationships is the key. Relationships are the key. You work hard, you do the right thing, you get associated with the right people, they're going to see what you're doing, and they're going to create opportunities for you. I firmly believe that, always. And every time people said, gosh, Darin, I'd love to have you part of the organization, I'd love to have you do this, and things just open up for you. You got to get out there. You know, I wouldn't say you have to be out there. You just have to do a good work. People will recognize the results. And be associating with people that you admire, that you respect, and that you have an appreciation for. And that really makes a huge difference. So at every time, people were saying, hey, gosh, why don't you come do this with me? I said, sounds great. So we started an organization. He had already started an organization. He asked me to come in as a CFO and the COO, telecommunications company. He ended up selling this to another person, which is a much longer story that I want to deviate from. And from that, he did really well, and I did pretty well. He was the majority owner, and I had a small piece in that. At each step of the way, I was building a little bit more funds in my pocket. I had ownership in the previous two engineering firms. I did well through that. I was starting to make a little bit more money. I was starting to put some money away, starting to make some investments. And so it was fantastic. With my goal was being, I wanted to have my own organization, and I wanted to be able to be running it for myself. So we decided to go out and kind of go find our firm. And so I did. I started, went out and bought an electrical service company out here in Lake Forest. It was doing about $5 million in revenue, had a great recipe. The owner had been running it for 20 plus years and it had gotten to a level where he didn't know where to go anymore. He couldn't take it any further. He didn't have the skills or the abilities to strategize, to visualize, and it couldn't grow beyond himself, right? And so it's hard. Sometimes there are different skills that are required at every level in an organization, from startup innovator to, okay, now you've got a mature organization, to now a really mature organization. They require different skill sets and different organizational and leadership qualities at each point. And you know, I had a dinner, just to deviate a little bit, with a guy who got a PhD at Caltech and another guy who was a computer science, got a master's in computer science at Caltech. And they said, you know, we've been running organizations, and the hardest part wasn't finding the idea. What was the hardest part of their organizations? It was the leadership. They said, working with people, getting people to do and kind of share your vision together. That was the hardest part for them. It was so frustrating for them, and they had a hard time relating to people, had a hard time finding people, had a hard time holding people accountable for positions and results. And I'd say they found that to be the most challenging component of being an entrepreneur. And then growing the organization, putting the systems in place, the processes. And I often hear sometimes just they don't understand the financial impact of decisions oftentimes. And so I would share with each of you, regardless of what you want to do, you have to understand your financial statements. You have to understand what it takes, what your product costs, how to deliver, what you're going to sell it for, and where you're differentiated in the marketplace. So anyway, this electrical service company, grew it, did well. We ended up selling it to a company called ABM. It's a big organization. You guys have probably heard of it. That was fantastic. I'll move on. So Salas O'Brien. Salas O'Brien, engineering firm, a guy who I knew, Carl Salas and Dan O'Brien had founded the firm. And Carl was now the 100% owner, and he was it had gone to that stage where it was $4.5 million in revenue, and 30 people in the organization doing extremely technical work, delivering to great clients. And he said, Darin, I don't know where to go with this anymore. I'm doing all the business side. I'm not doing the technical engineering like I like anymore. We don't have the systems in place. We don't have the processes. We don't have the right people. I don't know what to do. And I'm spending more time doing it, and I'm not being successful. And Darin, can you come help me? Can you buy the business from me? And I'd love to keep doing my engineering work. So long story short, we've grown this business over a 10-year period of time from $4.5 million in revenue to $70 million in revenue, from 30 people to 300 people, and it's been an amazing journey. We went from 2 shareholders. I think Michael mentioned last year we had 45 employee shareholders, and I'm really proud to say is that we hadn't lost one employee shareholder in the 12 years that I've been running the organization. And it was all about empowerment, all about creating that entrepreneurial environment where they were so vested in the success of the business, they were empowered to make decisions, and that we differentiated ourselves in the marketplace from other engineering firms. The industry growth had been 0 during that period of time, and in fact, we went through a recession. I don't know if you guys remember that. That was a tough time for us. There wasn't a lot of engineering work going on in California during that period of time, and people remembered how we approached that situation. We're very open, very transparent, very honest, that we said, hey guys, there's not as much work for everybody. We're going to do furloughs for a day for certain people. Then we went to a day and a half, but we kept everybody employed. We kept everybody on the benefits, and they appreciated being a part of that environment and a part of those decisions. And as a result, the loyalty, the commitment to the organization, they loved the environment, they loved the work that we were doing, and they knew that it was going to be hard for them to find jobs elsewhere, and that we were just holding on during this period of time. We had a heavy concentration with one client in AT&T, and I woke up one morning and said, wow, I'm not sleeping really well as an entrepreneur when the risk is all on you. And I should say, I didn't go back with Lori. This is the reality. The first time I wrote a check, I had been saving all this money for many years and had been very fortunate. And when we bought the first business, we wrote a check for $300-some thousand, and that was virtually all the money that I had. And when you have kind of worked on this deal and this arrangement, and you're now writing a check that's everything that you've got, and you go, I don't know that I can recover that in my lifetime if I wanted to. You go, am I throwing all of that away? You got to dig deep and really ask yourself, do you believe in yourself? Do you believe in your team and the people that are supporting you to make this investment? Have you done your homework? Have you done your due diligence? Are you going to make it work? Because if it didn't work, that was going to be really, really hard. And at the same time, we had just bought a house. We were just worried. My wife was pregnant with our first child, Luke, and I was gone. When we started that business, I was gone at 5:30 in the morning until 7 o'clock at night, every day. She was home with our son. It was a very difficult time. I was worried about the business. I was trying to make the business grow, trying to make it work. She was at home, not a lot of friends. We just kind of moved into the area. Our son was having some challenges. It wasn't an easy pregnancy. She was having a tough time and not getting any breaks. Our parents weren't capable or weren't close by, so she was with our son all the time, and that was really hard. And you know what? I sucked as a dad. I really did. She's been very gracious of kind of, I would say, forgiving me for a period of time, but I would say it goes to that there's a lot of sacrifice that's made by entrepreneurs. And you can tell, I think, earlier on, my first marriage failed. That was because I was working all the time. And I would say in this case, I was really more focused on making sure the business didn't fail, and my marriage could have easily failed. And so, word to the wise, if you're looking to be an entrepreneur, make sure that you've got some balance in your life and you really look at your priorities, because what I found in most entrepreneurs, they get so singularly focused, and it's an obsessive focus to a large degree, and everything else gets lost. And I'll share some of the stories about another organization here shortly. So thank you for all your sacrifice. And it has been a journey together, and the rewards now for us to be able to see the successes is great. But there was a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of sacrifices, a lot of worries, and when you've got little in the bank and you got to make this work, and it's not always in your control, those are tough things to chew on, right? And at the same time, the one business that I now have a partner with is that I had my one lawsuit in my life, and that was a painful experience as well. The business that my partner sold to this other person, these guys had tons of money, and I was a peripheral action in this lawsuit, and we literally had to spend a few $100,000 defending ourselves just to get a day in court. It was dismissed, but it was a long journey. You don't know how long it's going to go, and we have a couple attorneys in the room. You don't want to be in litigation, and I got my law degree through that experience. I can tell you that, and it's painful. And I've always said choose your partners very carefully, and that's very important. Not only choosing your partners in business, because you want to know who you're getting. It's a marriage, right? My partners I'm married to. In fact, you're just as married to those partners as you are to your wife, oftentimes, or your spouse. And obviously, I would also say is that choosing your spouse is extremely important in the journey. And you got to make sure that you're both aligned in that journey together. Because if you have different needs, different alignments of goals, and they're not in it with you together and know what the goal is or the result at the end of the day, somebody's going to lose. It won't work out well. Because there are long nights, there are sacrifices that are immense, more than probably than many of you are going to experience. And so you've got to have a partner who believes in you, who is going to be participating in that, who is going to stand by you through the good times and the bad times. And I'll share with my wife is that I knew she was from Wyoming. She's got great values and just hard work, and she didn't care. She didn't care at all about the money, which was amazing to me. She wanted to make sure that we had time together and to make sure that we were healthy and safe, and that was immensely powerful for me and liberating. And so thank you very much. So Salas O'Brien, we've continued to grow. Today, in September last year, we became 100% employee-owned, which I'm extremely excited about. So now all 300 of our team members are owners of our organization. I look back to when I first became an owner and bought Salas O'Brien. I asked the rest of the leaders, I said, do you guys want to participate in the ownership in some way? And they're like, why would I want to do that? Why would I want more liability? Why do I want to put more money into this business? Because the business wasn't making any money at the time. And so it was a change of the culture, change of the environment, and now everybody wants to be an owner in the organization. Before we became an employee-owned organization, everybody was asking, hey, I want to be an owner. I believe in what we're doing. And we grew. It was about 50% organic growth and 50% acquisitive growth. And we call them mergers because it was a marriage of organizations that were like-minded organizations. And the reason that these were all successful organizations that came into our group, and the reason being is that they believed in the vision. And our vision was we were small, we were great small organizations. They all were very passionate about what they were doing. The same level of engineering and the technical excellence, highest quality type of projects. We're known as the engineer's engineer. And so we talked to hundreds of different organizations, very fragmented space. There are probably only 7 companies that are of real size in the engineering world. A lot of really small companies. Somebody gets to be a good engineering firm and they get to be 20 people and they go, I'm kind of tapped out. I don't have any more leadership qualities to grow bigger. And the opportunity was that there are so many national organizations out there that want somebody who can be a good engineering firm for them. And so we put the systems in place. We put the processes that firms could grow, and we shared a vision. And so I had to be the selling person for this vision. And the great part of that is we have a lot of people who believed in our vision and what we were doing. And I'll give you an example. We're the national engineer for Microsoft, or global engineer for Microsoft. We do the data centers and commissioning of their large projects. Also for AT&T, for Verizon, and for T-Mobile. We do all their big switches, just one area. So what happens is we were doing work on a local basis, and they said, gosh, we love what you're doing, but there's more opportunities if you had people in other areas. And so we said, gosh, great. Let's go grow and open another office. And so we started associating with other local firms. And it really was a classic example of 1 + 1 = 3 in this case. We were able to sell more work. Everybody was participating in the growth. We got to improve our systems. We got to scale the organization. We started marketing and promoting more. And it was really, really, I don't want to say it was simple, but it was all working with people and making sure that we were sharing the same values across the organization and same cultures, and it's been wonderful. It hasn't been without challenges, but with our we've had huge growth, and now we're at the really, I would say, the beginning stages. We will be a major national and international organization. We'll probably hit $100 million this year in terms of run rate revenue, and I don't think there's any stopping us. And the goal is not to be how big. It's just to make sure that we're high quality and always doing excellent work. I'll share another perspective from an organization where I got involved. I'm the chairman and lead investor in a company called Convoy, and also now a company called Muhu, M-U-H-U. And it is truly a startup. These are both truly startup organizations. So I'll share that perspective with you. Any questions at this point in time? Take? Okay, go on. So Convoy started about 5 years ago. The guy is about a 27-year-old individual. His name is Blake. He started this organization to provide cameras and monitors for large transportation fleets. So McNeilus, Oshkosh, and these big trucks, waste management trucks, the cement trucks, they don't have any cameras behind them. They didn't at the time. They didn't have cameras behind them. They couldn't see behind these big trucks. Which is surprising, right? You can kind of have these technology in the car, but they couldn't figure it out in the big trucks. So we figured it out. We figured out so that the drivers were able to see behind them, see on the sides, because there were a lot of blind spots. We wanted to take that away just for a pure safety standpoint. Then it started evolving. The client said, gosh, now I want to be able to see the drivers in real time, and I want to be able to record it for driver training and driver education. So we started recording it. We put recording devices. We had DVRs. And they said, this is great, but we want to be able to see it in real time. We're like, okay. So our business kept growing. We went from literally $250,000 the first year, and with a major Fortune 500 company, which was highly unusual for us to be able to sell to a company like that. It usually takes years to get into their purchasing program. But because we had an innovative product that nobody else was delivering, we were able to sell quickly. So they said, okay, we'd like to see in real time. Like, okay. So we built a DVR. We had some compression software. We were working with Verizon, in fact, and now we're working with Telogis, believe it or not. So we built these programs that were cost about $2,000 to $2,500 a year for each of these vehicles. And it was timely, very expensive. But now the fleet owners were able to see their vehicles in real time anywhere in the world, which is pretty powerful, right? And you think about, from an insurance standpoint, if you got in an accident, what are you going to be able to do? You're going to prove the fault, right? What happens usually? Big companies, deep pockets. What do they usually do? They settle right out of court, and it's usually 50-50 or sometimes even worse than that, right? Because you have to take depositions, you have to recreate the scene, and then you usually settle because you don't want the visibility. So you're paying out a lot in legal fees, you're paying out a lot in insurance settlements. So we said, this is great. Our clients were saving a lot of money in unwanted claims or inaccurate claims. They were reducing the time it took to settle projects. And they were also realizing that, boy, now I have visibility to what my drivers are doing. Now, I thought that they were inefficient. Now I realize, well, they could be doing a little bit better. So they're avoiding accidents. They were proving wrongful claims, and now improving accountability and efficiency with the drivers. So we're now in the process of actually selling this division. It continues to grow. It's doing about $4.5 million in revenue, very profitable. Japanese firm is buying it. And so now we've started this software division that, believe it or not, the technology is now there where you can take your mobile phone. We've now solved the solution. We said, where is this industry going? It was really hard. It was expensive, $2,500. does anybody here want to be able to afford that in their car or in their fleet? It's kind of expensive, right? You only do that with vehicles that are $500,000, waste trucks, cement trucks, where an accident is really going to be expensive. So we said, we want to make this commercially available for anybody, for FedEx, for little pickup trucks, whomever. So let's go with this more of a consumer light commercial model. Well, we figured out that you can take your cell phone, and we now have dual streaming. That it's forward facing out of the cab and onto the driver, and you can see anybody in the world in real time like that. So you have the telematics. We're also building this driver scorecard where it says, these drivers, they're having G-shock events, they're hard accelerating, they're braking too fast. And so you're building this intelligence through companies that are partnering with Telogis for their telematics. We're now providing the video integration to this. So we're now working with telematics providers and others to provide the video for their fleets, which has been widely just received by everybody. And so now this is, again, innovation. We just started this Moohoo software literally in 2017 here. In January, we've launched it. So you go to moohoo.com, not that I'm plugging it, but you can go there and check it out. So this is something we've already signed 3 reseller agreements with large telematics companies that we've got commitments. We've already have 1,000 units sold, and we're now have commitments for another 9,000 units in 1 year with these other telematics companies. And this is innovation, right? We're using the technology that's available today, and where the competitors are still using old hardware that's really cumbersome, it takes time, installation time. Well, now you can use a software. What do? You just put it in your dash, and it's automatically working. You can just turn it on, and it's already there. No installation cost. All you're using is the mobile device, so the hardware is how much? 0, right? Or you buy a new phone if you need it. So we've completely removed the game of downtime for installation. We've completely removed the hardware cost, and it's now real time that you can see your fleet anywhere in the world, which is, and the cost is really inexpensive. We're talking $20, $25 per subscription. So this has been a long journey, though. This has been 5 or 6 years of development where we never would have started something like this had we not been in the space, right? We understood what the needs were and where technology was moving. So it was a convergence of, hey, the smartphones now are so capable, we can use the LTE technology. Now how do we figure out where we can do the dual streaming on the phones in real time so that we can be recording both ways on a regular smartphone, right? Have you guys figured that out? Do you know that? No. So we now can figure it out. We've done it. And we're integrated now other software tools. So what I would share is that you only recognize these opportunities when you're actually in the space and you're in the industry and you see where the technology is going, and you've got to make decisions and be ahead of it. Does that make sense? It's kind of the old adage is, the hockey players, what do? They're skating to where the puck is what? Where it's been or where it's going? They're going to skate to where it's going. And we did the same thing. We were saying, gosh, we got to figure this out. So a year ago, we were figuring out the technology is going to be there. We need to be ahead of it. And now our peers who are $100 million, $200 million business, have you guys heard of a company called Mobileye? Others? Mobileye, there's a Mobileye company. It just sold for $8 or $9 billion. I can't remember who bought it. Intel. Yeah, Intel just bought it. Thank you. We're in the same space. And then another company down in San Diego called Lytix, they just sold for $500 million. And these are companies that have less than $100 million in revenue, and they're losing money. We're already at break even. At the end of this year, we're going to be breaking even. And the model is just completely changed. So it's what I'm sharing with you is that today more than ever, the opportunities to innovate are there with the power of the smartphones like it's never been before. So if there are entrepreneurs in this environment, seems like there are, boy, it's a new world, and you can create some compelling growth strategies very easily just innovating. Computer science, engineering is a fantastic place to be right now. Gosh, I don't know how much time where we're at. Yeah.
Hey, how does your dual camera work? Do you mount it and then you just shoot both ways?
So we've got our own mount on it, and it is we use the camera. My phone here, but yeah. So it's a mount. We've got a special mount that actually has a heat sink on it, and it also has a fan, so it cools it down because it's constantly running in the background. You can use it anytime you want. So we're using the camera forward facing, and then the selfie camera is on all the time. And it's, you are seeing both screens in real time constantly. And it's real time data, there's no delay. You're seeing everything that's going on in that cab. You can see what happened historically. So events are recording to the cloud. So any event, we record the 10 seconds before, the 10 seconds after, and you can see what's happened in those events. And it builds a scorecard now. You see drivers that have 300 events in a month versus those who have 20 events in a month. So they've been hard braking, they've been hard accelerating. We build this scorecard to say, you need to train these drivers a little bit better. These ones are doing really well. You might want to reward them a little bit more. If these guys don't change their behavior, they're going to get in an accident. You want to avoid the accident, so retrain these guys, make sure they move this way, or get them out of your organization, because they're going to cause you big money. Does that make sense? Yeah. And then I can't even tell you the stories. We've saved millions of dollars in wrongful claims for our clients. It's been ridiculous.
So do you partner with the telephone companies? Like how do you program it? I mean,
it's like an app. It is an app. You download an app, Moohoo, moohoo.com. You download the app, and so we are a software company, so you can use your phone, or we will resell a phone to you through a provider. And then, so we're partners with Verizon. We're also partners with a couple other companies, but right now we sell direct, so FedEx is a customer of ours, Rodeco is a customer of ours, Pepsi-Cola is a customer of ours. We're working on a couple, in fact, with Telogis. In fact, I don't know if you guys know Pete Janda. Pete Janda, he's the CFO of our company. Yeah. So we brought the former VP of Finance over with Moohoo. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, thanks for asking. Appreciate it. Yeah.
A quote that comes to my mind by Pima Chodron is, it's only to the extent that we expose ourselves over and over to annihilation that what is truly indestructible is shown within us. As an entrepreneur, you gave that example of that $300 check. I know entrepreneurs expose themselves to annihilation. What have you found in yourself that is truly indestructible? Wow,
that's a big question. As I shared for a long period of time, I didn't have the confidence in myself. And today, I have a lot of confidence in understanding people, psychology, being able to assess a company and the strategy, and determining whether this is a person or people that I'm going to believe in or not. I'm so much better at that now than I was a long time ago. And I've been fortunate, knock on wood, I'm actually a really conservative guy. People would look at me and go, oh my God, you must be the biggest risk taker. You ask my wife, I'm very conservative. I don't invest in something unless I have the highest degree of probability that it's going to be successful. And I negotiate terms that it will be very hard for me to lose. And sometimes you have to look at a lot of frogs, and you have to know that they're frogs. And you also have to look at a lot of situations. They may have great technology, but you don't believe in the person. And there's a big difference, is that I've seen so many people be burned because the reputation of the people. I have a list of about 20 different items that I will look at, whether now I invest a lot in different companies. I'm on a couple private equity boards. I invest in companies. Are they passionate about what they're doing? Do they have a great reputation where they're always going to be doing the right thing for you? And now it's easier than ever to know what a person is all about. It's very open and transparent. And it's rare that I'm investing with somebody that I don't know several people who know them well. And that's the one thing, is that success breeds more success. You get associated with people who have those same skills. And you just got to be careful. I'm a very risk-averse person. Knock on wood, as I shared, I have not lost on any investment that I've ever made in an organization. That's rare. It's not because I couldn't have made more and I could have lost, but I'm so risk-averse. I don't like losing. And it's not like I don't like losing anything. I just don't like losing. I don't like losing. Sorry. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. So, I'm sorry, question.
So this question is about the people you associate yourself with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. That's the guy.
Thank you. So this question is actually about the people you associate yourself with. So I want to point to Professor Krim, for example, and he describes in his classes the concept of a wolf pack. Okay, and you described earlier in your presentation, the connections you've had with people throughout your time, your fraternity, that sort of thing. Could you describe a little bit about how you've constructed your inner circle today? Because some of the younger entrepreneurs here, depending on where they're coming from, may not understand those concepts very well if they, for example, separate their work and their life when they really should all be integrated in synergistic in a way. Thank you.
No, it's a great question. I guess at first I'd start was I always associate with what I guess say like-minded people who share the same values, who are driven, who are entrepreneurial, who I trust. And I will never invest with somebody or in somebody until I have seen what they are all about, their character, who they are, and how they respond when they're not looking for money or looking for a raise in some way. I want to know what they're going to do when nobody's looking. That's the biggest test of a character and of a person, is that how are they going to treat people? What are they going to do? Are they reputable? Are they going to do the right thing? Those are the characteristics that I want to know. I want to go into a foxhole with somebody, and I know that we're going to stick it out together and that we're going to believe in one another. And we may go down together, but we're going to do it together. And I've been fortunate. There have been only one instance where there was a partner that I didn't. It was that lawsuit that I had. The guy was a maniac. He literally was a sociopath. Was just a reckless individual that I never should have been associated with. But other than that, I've been very blessed that you can have all of the legal agreements in the world, and I always assess one thing. I go, I don't care what the legal agreement says. Do I believe in this person? Is that person going to do the right thing? Are they going to work hard? Do they have the same values? Do they have the same work ethic? Can I trust them? And today, there's no question. Every one of the partners that I've had for a long term. My business partner in these ventures been 25 years. We've been working together. We don't even have a written agreement. I don't suggest that, but we've been 50-50 partners. And we've never once, you talk about a marriage, we've not once had a disagreement. We've never once had an argument. And we're talking millions and millions of dollars that we've been investing and making together. And that's because I trust in him. I trust in him with my family. He does the same with me. And that we're always been fair to one another. There's never been a question about it. And I think that's to me, knowing you've got that brotherhood and you've got people that you believe in that have the same, just the same trust is huge. And so I always look for that first. And anytime I'm doing a merger or I bring in another association, that's why we've got 43 employee shareholders and never left. I mean, it's because we all believe together, they're vested, our interests are so aligned, and I trust them. I never worry in the back of my mind when I'm sleeping. I sleep like a baby today. I've slept like a baby ever since our first son was born about a year after that, because I believe in the people that I'm working with. And I know under any circumstances, we're always going to be more innovative. We're always going to be faster decision makers. And I think that's the difference at the end of the day. I've got absolute belief, and I know that nobody's going to leave me, and I'm not leaving them. We're committed to one another, and that's hugely valuable. And same with my marriage. I know we're committed to one another, and that's awesome, right? It's a great feeling. Yeah, great. Thank you for the question.
Yeah, let's wrap this up.
Yeah.
Take it outside.
Sure.
More Q&A outside. Can we give everyone?
Yeah. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, buddy.